Perfect. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this morning. My name is Nicole Young, and I am the Manager of Community Investments for the United Way of Pioneer Valley here in Springfield, Massachusetts. One of my duties is serving as the local board administrator for the Emergency Food and Shelter Program for our region. The purpose for this training is there are many currently funded local recipient organizations, or LROs, that have had significant staff turnover that are running these programs. And so what I wanted to do was to offer a training for new staff to get a better grasp on the program, because it's a lot to manage, and also for any staff who have been running the program who wanted a quick refresher. So just a little bit about the program itself, and I'm going to keep reiterating this throughout the training. So the Emergency Food and Shelter Program, also known as EFSP because we live in a world that loves to use acronyms, is a program administered via the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. This came out of the McKinney-Vento Homeless Assistance Act, and the funding for this program is to assist organizations that provide basic needs for their residents to supplement or expand ongoing services that you already support. One thing that I do want to note with EFSP, many times you will hear directly from the national board, which is located in Alexandria, Virginia. And a lot of times it's very reactive. So many of you who have been funded for a while, you will contact me and ask a question. Many times the national board will directly communicate with you, and I will be the last to know. So one thing that I do ask is, if you do receive any communication whatsoever from the national board, please contact me immediately, because many times the national board does not communicate with me as the local board administrator in terms of what has gone out to individual LROs. So here's a little bit of the structure of the EFSP program. So what happens on the national level, there is a board that is above the national EFSP board. They're the ones that actually award the funding, and this is FEMA. They award the funding to the national EFSP board, which is actually United Way Worldwide staff, which is why their office is based in Alexandria, Virginia, which is where United Way Worldwide headquarters are. Then the national board then makes the decision in terms of the funding that is then distributed to the local boards in the particular regions. They're also the ones who decide on reporting standards, and they are the ones who make decisions in terms of compliance and whatnot. So when you do any reporting, it goes directly to the national board. And when it comes to following protocol and compliance issues and things like that, they're the ones that take care of that. The local board, which is here, and I serve as the administrator of, so we are the ones that actually decide how the funding is allocated when it comes to applications within the specific phases, and I'll explain what that is later on in this training. We actually decide which what the application will look like, and also we will put a call out to local organizations, and then we will come together, read the applications, and make the decisions based on previous funding history and current activity. The local board is made up of members who represent a really good base of our basic needs service population, including a representative from Catholic Charities, a representative from the American Red Cross, a representative from the Salvation Army, and also we have someone who is on the local board who is very well versed in the homeless population. We are looking for new local board members, so if anyone knows of anyone who is very well versed in knowing the needs for our region and also do not currently receive funding for EFSP, please send them my way. We do have a couple of people on the EFSP local board that receive funding, but when it comes to voting decisions, they do not decide on funding. So this is just a little bit more in terms of the makeup and responsibility for the local board. The other thing that I forgot to mention is we are in charge of making sure that local recipient organizations, or LROs, spend their money responsibly. So there'll be times when we will offer other trainings to go over what funding categories look like. Also, I'm here to, like with phone calls and things like that, to just double check to make sure that you are utilizing your funding appropriately. And also with regards to our service area, with regards to Hampden County, so the organizations that will qualify for this funding are essentially any organization that is currently serviced through the United Way of Pioneer Valley, which includes all the 23 towns and cities in Hampden County, South Hadley, and Granby. So in terms of operating procedures, so these are all things that are mandated by the EFSP National Board. So the funding that you receive through this program must supplement or expand the current programs that you are already running. You may not use EFSP funds to start a new program. The allocation goes to the neediest areas. So this is also something that we look at in terms of the local board. We look at when the organizations do apply, we see who they're currently serving and make the decision based on that. We also make sure, like the organizations also with regards to the public and private sector cooperation, we also need for organizations to be an already operating 501c3. When they do apply for funding. And then last but not least, yes, there is minimum reporting required by EFSP, and I'll go into more detail later on in the training. The reporting is minimal. You only have to report twice a year. With regards to the final report, many organizations are asked to submit a lot of supplemental documentation. So please, one of the things that I do advise for LROs to do is to make sure that they keep all receipts, invoices, canceled checks that are included with that particular funding period, because EFSP may or may not ask you for copies of that documentation. So this is just a brief explanation of some of the terminology that you will hear used from myself as a local board administrator and also from the national board. So national board, of course, they are based out of Alexandria, Virginia. You'll sometimes hear them used by the acronym NB. I've rarely heard them used by that acronym, but I just wanted to make sure that the acronym and the shorthand was included. The local board, which I serve as the administrators, the local body that administers the program, selects recipients and collects documentation. Then the LRO, and this is an acronym that you will hear and see a lot. The Local Recipient Organization, this is the agency receiving the money and performing the direct services. The phase, and the phase and the spending period, I'll go into that because they're kind of interchangeable. But the phase and the spending, so the phase is the number that it's essentially the period of the application and the allocation. The application and allocation period assigned by EFSP. There was a time when the phase would only last a year, but within the past 3 or 4 phases, at least since I've been with the United Way, and I've been here almost 2 years, the phases have operated either a year and a half or 2 years. The LRO certification, this is something that all LROs must complete at the very beginning of the phase after they've received notification of receiving the funding. I'm going to later on in this training, I'm going to go through quickly through the website as quick navigation so that you can see where things are, including where the LRO certificate is. The DUNS number, which many of you should already have it because you operate as a 501c3 and many of you receiving federal funding. This is essentially needed for you to receive EFSP funding. all funding, with the exception of the first payment that goes out to new LROs, is sent through electronic funds transfer. So if you are a new LRO and you have not submitted your electronic funds transfer form, please do so as soon as possible, because from the second payment out, you will only receive your payment electronically. The interim report and request for second payment form. So this is the report, and again, I'm going to do a brief navigation of the website later in the training. This is the report that you will complete once you've received your first payment. The payments are done in 2 installments. The interim report and second payment request form, it's essentially just, it's just a brief document that's asking the amount of money that you've allocated or used in your particular category. It's not asking for any specific documentation, like any receipts or anything like that, to prove your spending. Your online account through EFSP. So most communication, actually all communication from EFSP is either done via the account online or done via email. So make sure that you are checking your online account regularly. And again, I'm going to navigate the page, because a lot of times they'll email you and then the same email document will be shown on the website, or they will say to log onto the website, click on this particular thing to get the notice that usually would be received via email. The final report. So many of you are currently funded under either phase 35 and phase 36, or just phase 36. Many of you have asked me, because phase 35 ended a while ago. It actually ended sometime late last, like mid last year, why you have not received information on how to complete the final report for phase 35. Phase 35 and phase 36 are running concurrently. And I think what's going to happen is once phase 36 ends, which is on March 31st of this year, they will probably open up the final reporting for both phase 35 and phase 36. Please know that you will receive a notification both from the National Board and from me, probably the National Board first, with regards to when the final report is available to fill out and when it is due. The National Board will also communicate to individual LROs the specific documentation that you will need to submit for your final report. So this is just a little bit of a brief history of the funding that has been available to our region and when the phases have happened. So the EFSP program has been around for some time, and this I just wanted to offer, because this history here offers a pretty good overview of what our current LROs have been, our currently funded LROs have been funded. So for the current phase, which is phase 36, which is running from February 2018 to March 2020, we were allocated $249,889 to allocate amongst organizations. So one of the things that you'll see here is you'll see like dips and rises with regards to the allocated funds. So how the allocation is determined, there is a formula within the National Board and FEMA that determines this. And one of the things I was told was the funding, the formula includes the current unemployment rate for that region. So this is why you'll see different dips and like highs and lows within the specific funding cycles. So what is a spending period? So unlike most programs, especially ours, because many of the LROs are also funded through the United Way of Pioneer Valley's Basic Needs Program that operates like you are using funding for the current year and for current operated programs. So for EFSP, it works a little differently. So the funding that you receive for EFSP is to essentially reimburse yourself for expenses that you've done for the particular program. So you will receive the funding, and it's for retroactive. So that's the other thing to take note of too when you are going back to do documentation. For example, with phase 36, which is from February 2018 to March 2020, the application and everything came out the summer of 2019. Awards were announced like July 2019, but organizations could use the funding retroactively and then could use the funding up until March 2020. So this is just a brief overview of the responsibilities that the National Board asks for all LROs to follow, including must have readily available internet access and check your emails daily, as 100% of the communication from the National Board and from the local board occurs through email. You must also enroll in the EFT direct deposit program using your agency's checking account. You are also to establish an online account for your organization. This is something that you do not have to do. If you are a new LRO, this is done from our office, and then we will send you the login information. One thing to note, because this is a question that I've gotten a lot, is I've lost my password. Can you send me my password? Like most secure systems, once a password is issued and you change it, we will not have access to the password at all. So what will have to happen is the password will need to be reset. Also, make sure to really think about who, because there will be only one email address and one person linked to the online account. So really think through who you and your organization assign to be the main contact for this program. For many of our LROs, the person who serves as the contact is either the accountant or the bookkeeper. And I think one of the reasons why that is because the reporting, unlike, for example, with the Basic Needs Program, which is mainly qualitative reporting, EFSP asks for a lot of numbers and a lot of accounting. So this is why many organizations have their accountant or their bookkeeper serve as the contact for EFSP. Also, you must make sure that you complete the LRO certification, because that's literally the thing that says we should start paying you. And also, the other thing too to note, you are not to, when you do your annual budgets, you are not to include that you're going to be applying for EFSP funding, as this funding is to supplement any existing resources. Also, it will not do your organization any good. I say this a little bit as a joke, but it's true. It will not do your organization any good to budget for EFSP funding, even if you could, because of how the phases are announced. Like, for example, with phase 35, it was announced so late in the year. I think we got notice of it in March, which many organizations that we fund operate on a fiscal year calendar from July to June. So of course you can't really budget for EFSP funds because of that cycle. And also sometimes too, when EFSP announces a cycle, the turnaround from announcement to application is really fast. This past cycle, we had about 5 weeks from the announcement of the application to the determining funding to get everything done. EFSP also asks you to submit reports on time, both hard copies and online, and I'll explain a little bit more of that later in the training, because that also, there's multiple factors that go into determining future funding when you do apply, including when you submitted your reports, what compliance issues you had, so on and so forth. Again, please make sure to check your emails daily. We don't mandate this, but the National Board does. The National Board actually states that you must reply. If they ask you for something specific, you must get back to them within 10 business days. When it comes to any future funding, you cannot have outstanding compliance issues within the jurisdiction. There have been so many various different compliance issues to where it's really hard to explain. Like, for example, there were some organizations that, and I'll go into this a little bit later as well, who used the wrong payment source and had a compliance issue, or one organization literally was off $1 on one of their reports. This is all reviewed and mandated by the national board, but make sure that if you do have a compliance issue and they reach out to you about it, make sure that you address it immediately. Also, a lot of times you can contact me as the local board administrator, because a lot of times you will get notice from EFSP about a compliance issue, but it's not really clear or specific what it is. As a local board administrator, in my login, I can sometimes log in, download the report for your compliance issue, and see the specific details. And I will be more than happy to walk you through it. A lot of times, also like this past cycle, because there were so many compliance issues, EFSP staff, national board staff made themselves available to people by phone and email to answer any questions associated with those compliance issues. Also, EFSP National Board asks that you maintain documentation up to 3 years. And one of the reasons why, other than like tax compliance, is because the phases can sometimes go back to 2.5 years. And then this one may not be a vendor or services to another LRO. So you can't purchase services from another LRO unless it is, like, for example, the Food Bank of Western Mass. So the Food Bank of Western Mass, they are, for example, they're a recipient of EFSP funding, but because they offer a specific service to you, you can use them as a vendor. And my apologies for spitting out so much information at you at once without opening it up to Q&A. So I hope that you're all, as I'm giving you all this information, have your questions written down, and then we will open up for Q&A after the presentation. So the payment schedule. So payments for EFSP are made in 2 installments. The first payment is done after you've submitted your LRO certification fund, and also depending on previous phase compliance issues. So for example, we're currently in phase 36. There's a couple of organizations, even though they've completed their LRO certification for this phase, they still have a couple of outstanding compliance issues from previous phases, so they have not received their first payment. So the first payment will not come to you until you've submitted your LRO certification form and there are no outstanding compliance issues from previous phases. Once you've received your first payment, you can then go ahead, log into the site, and complete the interim report and second payment request. Once that is submitted, then you will receive your second payment. And just to note one more time, all payments, with the exception of the first payment to new LROs, are done via EFT. So make sure that your organization is signed up for that program. So this is going to be a really, really breezy procedure in terms of the funded categories that EFSP funds. So organizations, you can apply, as long as your organization already provides this service, you can apply for multiple categories. We do have some organizations currently that are receiving in multiple categories. Again, this is based on the services that you already provide. So you can apply for meal serve. This is for meal serving sites. Other food is, so this is for where food is prepared and served. Other food is food pantries. So this is where you're giving a bag of food. Mass shelter. So this is where you are providing a bed and a night for those who are currently without a home. Rent, mortgage assistance, and utilities assistance, which is on a one-time, you can only offer it once for a household during that particular funding period. So with regards to meals served, the eligibility for it is any food used in served meals, either cold or hot, and you are only allowed to allocate $2 per meal. In terms of if you were to receive funding in this allocated chunk, you are not able to, and this has been debatable. EFSP National Board has yet to give me a clear answer with regards to purchasing excessive snacks. You can't, like, the funding has to be used to feed your particular client. It can't be used for staff events or functions or feeding your staff. With our local board, we kind of came up somewhat with a definition of excessive snacks. So it's essentially making sure that it doesn't absorb most of your budget. And so that would be like pretzels, anything that your organization would deem a snack. Fruit is very debatable. This is something that we're still trying to work out as a local board and also trying to get the definition from the national board. So other food, if you are a food pantry, you can pay for food vouchers, food boxes, grocery orders, restaurant vouchers, food purchase from the food bank, and gift cards. You cannot use EFSP funding to purchase tobacco, alcohol, paper products, any non-food items, so like napkins, spoons, serving utensils, trash bags, and also excessive food snack items. And you cannot use funding towards staff events or functions or feeding your staff. So for mass shelter, this is addressing homelessness. It's direct expenses associated with housing a client. So it could be purchasing supplies and linens for the bed, transportation costs, getting them to and from different places. You have a per diem of $12, up to $12.50 per day. Not eligible under this expenditure is year-round ongoing operational costs, so paying rent for your facility, insurance for your facility, pest control for your facility, garbage pickup, utilities, and salary for employees. The next one is rent or mortgage. So this is to assist with past due rent or mortgage payment. The current rent or mortgage due within a 5 calendar day period. First month's rent, lot fee for mobile homes, and this is limited to 1 month's cost for an individual or a family. Not eligible under this category is payment for rent or mortgage exceeding 1 month's cost. Security deposits, down payment for purchasing a home, late fees, legal fees, taxes, insurance, and escrow. And then the last one is, utilities assistance. You can assist with past due bills, current bills due within the 5 calendar day period for gas, electricity, oil, and water, any associated reconnection fees. You may pay the budget or the actual amount. This, again, similar to the rent and mortgage, is limited to 1 month's amount that is part of the average, I still can't pronounce that word, at the time of payment or current 1 month amount, and also one-time delivery of firewood, coal, or propane, of course, depending on the service that your client has at their home. The for not eligible under this category is payments for utilities exceeding 1 month's cost, any deposits associated with that utility, cable television bills, phone, home landlines, or cell phone lines, internet service, and late fees. This was a question that has come up a lot because since all of you are very actively pursuing services and you are all very busy, we've had many of you contact me regarding using EFSP funds to address repairs or purchasing new equipment that is regarding your service. And the response I got from EFSP National Board is organizations could purchase small equipment up to $300 per item, or use $300 to address minor emergency equipment repairs of small equipment. And this is only eligible for mass shelter and mass feeding that could impede on the delivery of service. So if you need to purchase like a new refrigerator, you can only use $300 of EFSP funding to address that expense. So this is one big thing that I saw in terms of compliance issues within the past phases is how you pay vendors. So the ways that you can pay vendors include a check from your organization, a vendor-issued credit card. So this will be like maybe a Walmart credit card, Home Depot credit card, the debit card that is associated with your checking account, or an electronic payment from your bank account to the vendor. Not acceptable forms of payment for service include cash or a major credit card like a Visa or MasterCard that is issued to the agency. So you could still use like a Walmart department card or something like that, but not a major credit card that was issued to your agency. in preparing for final reports. All LROs, so this was a confusion. This is one other thing that happened in terms of why there were major compliance issues, one of the last phases. So all LROs must submit the final report document that you enter in on the site along with the spreadsheet that is appropriate to the funding that you received. And when we get closer to final reporting, you can be in touch with me to ask how you would download that specific spreadsheet. I can also show it to you where it is on the site momentarily. The EFSP National Board will communicate directly to LROs to request final reporting documentation. So what happens is there's two things that happens when an LRO submits their final report. So you submit, so you'll do the final report spreadsheet thingy on the website, and then you will print it, and then all documentation. So if you were asked to submit any invoices, bills, copies of receipts, or canceled checks, we ask that you send us 2 photocopies of it. 1 photocopy we have to keep in our record, and then another copy we send to EFSP National Board. And when we get closer to final reporting, I'll make sure to specify this information again. And I will also provide you the mailing address to send to me, and we'll then pile everything up and then send it to National Board. So with regards to the required spreadsheet that you are to submit with your final report, so anyone that is providing mass shelter or mass feeding, you are to do a daily per diem schedule or daily per meal allowance schedule. If any agency is providing a per diem schedule, please keep in mind that the supporting documentation, such as canceled checks, invoices, service records, and sign-in sheets must be retained. You may or may not be asked to submit that documentation with your final report. Other EFSP expenditures, make sure that when you do make copies of the canceled check, that it's both sides. I just needed to specify that. This is just a little bit of advice in terms of preparing to submit required documentation for the final report. Prepare documentation on an ongoing basis, review everything monthly, prepare by category, because many organizations that are funded through EFSP are funded through multiple categories. Make sure to attach copies of canceled checks to any associated receipts, utility bills, landlord letters, etc. Many organizations, I don't think, still use adding machine tape, but if you do, make sure that you maintain that, because EFSP may or may not ask you for it. Also, for meal served sites only, just to reiterate, the per diem per meal amount is $2 per person. Make sure that you keep any mileage logs for transportation costs. This is with mass shelter. And then this I'm still a little unclear on in terms of the steps for properly packaging documentation for submission. I think it is located in the EFSP manual, which is on the website. And also make sure when you fill out your spreadsheet to not leave any columns blank. We did have some compliance issues with organizations because they did leave some columns blank. So make sure everything is filled in. So this is all of the documentation that is made available to you on the EFSP website. For example, many people asked why there's not a Phase 36 manual. EFSP stated since there were no changes from how they were operating from Phase 35 to Phase 36, that the Phase 35 manual was going to stay intact. So thank you so much for your patience during this time. I just threw out a lot of information at you in a very short period of time. So before I go to navigate on the website, I wanted to take an opportunity and open up the floor for any questions. So I'm going to go ahead and unmute you all, and this will be a time to pose questions if you have any. So all participants, you are now unmuted. So does anyone have any questions?
Nicole, this is Andrea.
Yes.
On the slides regarding funding for meals served and other food, the things that were listed, funded and not funded. Can we get copies of those slides? Can we get copies of this presentation?
Yeah, so you will, once I edit it, you will receive a copy of the presentation. Also, I will email, there's quick reference guides for each funded category, and I will email those out as well so that you have access to those.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Nicole, it's Pamela at Women's Shelter.
Hi, Pamela.
Regarding mass shelter and purchase and repair of equipment, I thought at one point I had read, or I guess I assumed somewhere along the way, that if we had submitted a request that was above the $300 for review, it could be considered by the local board. Is that not true? Or because what I thought I heard you say today was that the $300 was the max.
So I think something, and Pamela, you are correct. There was a time when organizations could ask to use more funding. When I last emailed EFSP and I included that question, literally the only thing that came back was that $300. So
Okay.
I'm guessing that may have changed.
Okay.
Cool, but that's a really good question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions before we go into website navigation? Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, everyone, for your patience. So I'm going to go ahead and mute everyone again, and then I'm going to go into the website navigation. So all organizations are assigned a user ID. The user ID would be the number of the LRO. It's a pretty long login ID. The number of the local board, which is 450200, and then the 3 digits that are your assigned LRO number. When I contact you with your new login and things like that, I will make sure that you get this information. And then, of course, your password, we assign you a password, but then we ask that you go in and change it. So this is quick navigation of the site. So here on the left-hand side is practically the whole menu of everything you need. If, let's say, for example, you get an email from EFSP that says this funding was distributed or something like that, the letter, because it will say, please go to the site to check the letter. The letters will be actually under reports. So you will click on the phase that you received the letter for, and then here would be where you would click on the letter that you need to see, either compliance letter or payment letter. Why you don't see phase 36 and phase 35 in terms of final report is because that information has not been made available. Actually, no, never mind, because I'm used to navigating. So we operate as an LRO as well, the United Way, because we receive an amount for serving as the administrator, and then I also have a back-end account as an administrator, and I see things differently on both sides. So when you are asked to complete LRO certification, it will be under the LRO plan. And then once you submit that, you can go back at any time and visit this tab to see how much you were allocated in each category. Also, this is where you have access to the total amount that you received, your LRO number, the phase that we're in, and then also the spending period begin date and the spending period end date for that particular phase. So this is for phase 36, which the spending period began October 1st 2018, and the spending period, it will end on March 31st, 2020. Go back a little bit. This is for phase 35. Phase 35, the spending period began February 1st, 2018, and ended May 31st, 2019. When it comes to submitting the interim report and second payment request, it is this tab right here. So we've already submitted. So once you've submitted the report, you'll see this. But if you have not, you will see prompts to complete the report. The final report tab is here. At the appropriate time, you'll be able to click on the phase and then get either the report that you need or either complete the report that you need. If you need to complete the electronic funds transfer form, whether you're a new LRO or you need to change it, the form is located right here. You will download it, include a canceled check, and you will put it in the mail to EFSP. The quick reference guides are located here. I will be sending them to you via email, but if you do need them, they are located here as well on the site. The EFSP manual, so when I referenced that we're in phase 36, but the phase 35 manual is up because there's no changes, that manual is here. It is really, really dense, but it is also very informative in terms of EFSP funding. Key program dates for the phase are located here. I just want to download it to see what it says. So this goes back, let's see. It does not currently state when the final report will be due, but this does give you insight in terms of like when you applied, when we had to submit the plan to say who was going to be funded, deadline for new LROs to submit their EFT enrollment form, the interim report and second payment due dates and things like that are all listed here. Also, other important tabs, if you need to change your password, that's available here. If you need to change any contact information, that's located here. Make sure you click the edit button and save at the appropriate time. Also, EFSP, if there's any, if you have any questions regarding how to do, like fill out a specific spreadsheet, or if you have questions about different compliance issues or EFSP, they have recorded and made webinars available here that are accessible at any time. And then also here under forms is when it comes time to the final report and you need to complete a spreadsheet, you will download the appropriate spreadsheet here that is associated with your funded category. So now I'm going to open up the floor one more time for any questions before we wrap up. So I'm going to go ahead and unmute everyone. So I've unmuted everyone. Does anyone have any questions since we've navigated the website? Okay, perfect. Does anyone have any questions or comments for me regarding any of the training material that you saw today, or any questions regarding the program in general?
Nicole, it's Andrea. I just have a comment, being a new person to this whole EFSP thing for the USO. Thank you so much for this training. It was really well done, informative, and maybe I won't be calling you as much anymore. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Andrea, for the comment. I'm always available via phone if you have any questions, because this is a very complicated program. So if you have any questions along the way, please let me know. And also, if your organization does turn over to a new person in charge of the program, please send them my way. Also, if there's multiple people working on the program, like I do have a couple of LROs who have like one person who's in charge of this, one person who's in charge of this, one person who's in charge of this, but only one contact person. I'm gonna go ahead and mute everyone again because I hear some weird noise. Please have that person reach out to me. Also, if along the way, like let's say, for example, your program director has a question with regards to the allocation of funds, but they don't do any reporting, you can definitely send them my way. Because what I don't want to see happen, and this is something I forgot to mention at the beginning of the training, is if there is an organization with an outstanding compliance issue and it never gets solved, because we have a couple of those organizations, they may not get funded in the future, and then whatever that funded amount was historically, EFSP National Board may take that money back from us. So it is really, 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 really important that you stay in touch with me and communicate as much as possible, because I have seen already in my almost 2 years here with the United Way, organizations that did not resolve a compliance issue that are no longer eligible for EFSP funding. So I'm going to open up the floor one last time. Open up the So I'm going to open up the floor one last time for any questions or concerns prior to us wrapping up this morning. So everyone is unmuted. If you have any other questions, please feel free to pose them now, or feel free to email me or call me after the training with any questions. Okay, well, this is great. So I wanted to take a moment to thank all of you, not only for signing up and for completing this training, but also for administering this program on behalf of your organizations. You all do a lot for our communities, and to take the time to manage this program is a lot. Also, for several of you, this is an even bigger task because you are doing this as a volunteer for your organization. So I want to give you an even bigger shout out for taking the time as a volunteer to work with your organization on administering this program. So either later this week or early next week, I will send the recording of this training, but in the meantime, I will send the quick reference guide, which gives, it's a one-pager, I think, that gives specifics on each funded category. Also, feel free to email me or call me with any questions or concerns. So thank you so much for attending this training and making this time. And I will be in touch with all of you very soon. And have a great week.
Thank you.